High above the mountaintops, there were two men who will bring you gaming news.
Oh shit, we're on.
What?
Hey everyone, welcome to GameGorgon. My name's Indigo.
And I'm Krug.
And today we're going to be talking about wisdom and how it affects everything in Pathfinder 2nd Edition.
Something that I don't have. But
Did you do it for Dex?
maybe I have Dex. Wisdom represents your common sense, your awareness, and your intuition. It is very helpful for things like perception, which you can use to shit on stealth characters, or to do things like roll better initiative most of the time, since initiative is very variable in this game. It is all around a very useful skill.
Mm-hmm. The first thing that we are going to go over with wisdom is religion, and basically every single thing, untrained and trained, that comes with religion is covered in arcana and occultism and lore, all back on the intellect video, so go watch that.
Yeah, we're not going to go over it again to save time and to get those sweet, sweet, sweet view numbers on the intelligence video. Thank you very much. Next up is medicine. Now, we're going to go over medicine, and you might be a little bit confused because two of the things we're going to talk about with medicine aren't going to be in your rule book unless you've downloaded the updated version from Reddit.
Which that link is in the description. So.
True value. Those two were added in updates, and so if you go through the update notes, you'll find them there, or you can just watch this video and find them here. The first action is administer first aid, which is untrained and requires healing tools. It's used to stabilize a creature at 0 health. So if you want to prevent somebody from dying, but you don't necessarily have the means to heal them, this is your go-to solution. Or to stop bleeding damage, you have to choose one or the other for a roll, but you can make 2 rolls to do both. For an administer first aid check, the DC, according to the book, is always 15, although I would not doubt that DMs are gonna adjust this moving forward, because like if it's, you know, a thunderstorm or something, like it's gonna be a little bit harder for you to do something like this.
Sure.
I wouldn't doubt that this changes, even though the book doesn't give you the leeway necessarily.
On a success, the target loses the dying condition, which is huge, especially since you can be from dying 1 all the way to dying 3 without being dead.
Yeah.
And if you have chosen to get rid of a bleeding condition and you succeed, well, guess what? Make them stop bleeding.
On a critical failure, if you're attempting to stabilize the creature, their dying condition increases by 1. So you basically put them closer to death. You can straight up kill a character by critically failing if they're already at death's door. Like,
yeah.
That's big.
Well, I mean, the problem is that you have to critically fail. So you have to either roll a 5 or lower, or a 5 or lower, that's it. You have to roll a 5 or lower and you immediately, and that's not roll, it's, you have to get a 5 or lower.
So it is possible to get this skill to a point where you can't critically fail.
Other than having a natural 1.
Yeah, other than having a natural 1. If you're attempting to stop bleeding damage instead of stabilizing someone, they take bleeding damage equal to the value of persistent bleeding damage that they take, just because you tried to stop the bleeding.
Let me put that bandage on there. Oh, I put my thumb in your wound!
It's like he has a sword. Is this a bandage?
Yeah, I mean, it is a critical failure.
Yeah.
It is like...
Yeah, you f***ed up hard.
The next thing is treat disease, which is a trained action, which makes sense. Like, I'm not trained in any form of disease control. I would not know the first thing
you just inject water into their...
or air, right?
Yeah.
That removes the disease.
Just thinking about that gives me shivers.
Now, to do this, you need to spend 8 hours doing this. So it isn't a combat-oriented thing.
No, this is like downtime almost.
Yeah, and then the DC for this is actually set based off of what disease they have.
Yeah, the disease will give you the DC.
Exactly. Now the thing is that do you necessarily have to know what the disease is, or just that they have a disease?
I think part of the 8 hours is discovering what the diagnosis and treatment.
Sure.
Because it doesn't say that you have to make a separate check to identify the disease.
You just have to know that it is a disease and not a curse.
Yeah. I mean, you can try to spend 8 hours and at the end of it be like, that's not a disease.
On a success, the patient gets a +2 on their next saving throw against the disease.
On a critical success, that's a +4 instead.
Now, on a critical failure, the person gets a -2 to their disease saving throw.
Because apparently, instead of injecting them with the cure, you injected them with more disease.
They're like, hey, it's not a disease, it's just chickenpox, you'll be fine.
Next up is treat poison, which is the same as treat disease, except for the DC is set by the poison instead of the disease. The success, and critical failure are all the same as treat disease, just replace the word disease with poison.
Next is treat wound, which is another trained action and requires a healer's kit to perform. It takes 10 minutes and it can target up to 6 injured creatures. Now the DC for this is going to be determined by the worst injured person that you're trying to take care of, and the DM is going to be the one that decides that. Now you can also redo this check every 10 minutes so that you can get additional healing done as well as possibly make things worse.
Yep.
On a success, everyone that you're treating gains health equal to con times your level, or just your level if you have a low con.
Mm-hmm. On a critical success, you basically increase the success healing by your level times 3.
That's not bad.
No, that's good, especially high level.
Oh yeah. On a critical failure, your patients are bolstered against your future attempts.
Now, that's kind of weird because it doesn't give a time frame for how long they're bolstered. I'm assuming it's until the beginning of the next day or something like that.
Yeah.
That seems reasonable to me.
Yeah.
Next up is Analyze Forensics, the CSI of Pathfinder 2nd Edition. This is going to require 10 minutes of your time. It's a trained action, and it's basically used to identify how a body was injured or killed. Note that you don't need healing kit for this.
On a success, you gain a clue on how this person may have been killed.
Insert Blue's Clues clip here. On a critical failure, the DM gets to fuck with you. Hey, are you one of the people that likes our shirts? We got them for free from Void Merch, and we like them a bunch. We think you're gonna too. If you want to check them out, link is in the description.
Next, we're going to go into nature, which has a bunch of the same recall knowledge, read nature, stuff like that, which is going to go back to what we originally said, which is go back to the intellect video
Give
and
us
watch
them views. The next two kind of go hand in hand. They are Handle Animal and Command an Animal. Handle Animal is a prerequisite for Command an Animal, and it essentially allows you to prepare an animal to accept your command.
Yes.
Which is going to be necessary at the start of every turn that you want to command an animal. You can only use it on animals that are helpful towards you, the attitude of helpful. If you're trained in animal handling, you can also use it on animals that are either friendly or indifferent to you, but that's just for trained. On a success, you successfully prepare the animal to receive a command from Command an Animal, and you can mount it. And there's details for mounting that we haven't gone over yet, but they are on page this one.
Next is Command Animal, which is another untrained ability that you can use, but you have to have had already handled animal before you can command the animal.
Yeah, there are some exceptions for users of the ride feat.
Yes.
Which, if you go and read that, it'll give you the exceptions.
Now, with the command action, you can do the following, which I'm going to read out loud. Leap, seek, stand, stride, and strike.
It's pretty intuitive. It's just all of the kind of martial things that you can normally do.
Yeah.
Now, animals can have their own unique actions. Like, for example, a horse has gallop. The thing about the unique actions is if you want to command them to do one of those things, you have to command them a number of times equal to the action cost of that unique thing. So if something requires 2 actions, you have to use Command Animal twice.
Which
is your whole turn.
Yeah, this, Command Animal and Handle Animal is really rough.
I feel, and I don't know exactly how I do it, but I feel like it would be very simple to combine these into one thing and not lose any of the mechanics that they're going for. They don't want you to be able to do it 3 times per turn, apparently. They don't want you to be able to, that's it. I think they just don't want you to be able to do it 3 times per turn. So, I mean, why can't they just make that, you know how some feats have a special at the bottom, like special rules for the future? So why can't it just say you can only command an animal twice per turn, or you can only use up to 2 actions to command an animal per turn?
I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. Like,
yeah. I think this is a little poorly thought out. It's just unnecessarily complicated.
It's unnecessarily complicated, and it's like, I think they're overly complicating it for people that want to use it for simple reasons. Like,
yeah,
sometimes I'm going to want to use Handle Animal to improve the emotions of an animal that I'm trying to interact with, and not necessarily tell it to go do something, but like, You know, if
calm it down.
Yeah, exactly. I'm in the woods and a wolf comes out and it's growling at me. I'm gonna try to make a handle animal handle animal action to prevent an attack from happening.
Why? And it doesn't say that anywhere. It doesn't say. It specifically says you can't use it on a hostile creature. It excludes it, and that's kind of that's silly in my opinion. I think you should be able to use like calm animal.
Well, handle animal should act, in my opinion, similar to how some of the charisma-based actions work, which is it improves the attitude of an animal by one step.
And I swear, if you say that you're going to use like diplomacy to reduce or to increase the friendship meter, whatever the fuck it's called, of an animal, that doesn't make any sense.
Because they can't speak.
Because they can't speak and they don't care what you look like. Charisma's useless.
And you also, I'm pretty sure you also get a negative if they don't understand the language that you're speaking. So
yeah, it really makes sense for it to be here in Wisdom, and it's not right now.
Yeah.
And that I think needs to change. Next is Survive in the Wild. This is basically the same as Subsist on the Streets, which we covered in our intelligence video.
So it's subsist in the streets and...
I swear if the word sheets comes out of your mouth.
No, it's subsist in the streets and survive in the wild, right?
Yeah, that rhymes, sure.
The next thing is going to be sense direction. This is an untrained ability, and if you can't tell what it does, it allows you to tell what direction is what. Like, I don't really know how to further explain that in a different way.
Yep.
You can only do this once per day unless the GM gives you the opportunity to do it for a second or possibly third time, depending on the situation, which could make sense. I mean, if you're always thinking something's north and then you come across something that might give you a hint of what the actual direction you're going, makes sense. Like, oh, there's the sun. I didn't see the sun earlier. Now I know what direction we're going.
Or you're teleported. Like, you know, like your environment changes so drastically and so suddenly that it makes sense for you to have to do it again. The GM will tell you to do it again.
On a success, you, well, find out, at least based off your environment, around the right direction that the direction you're looking for is, or kind of orientate yourself where things might be.
Yeah. The book also says that you gain enough orientation to avoid becoming helplessly lost, which is very open to GM interpretation, so we'll just leave that to them. Next is cover tracks. This is something that you're gonna use to prevent people from tracking you. Tracking is the next action we're gonna talk about. To cover your tracks, you're going to move half your speed while you're covering your tracks, and that will set the DC for tracking you to your survival DC. Now, your survival DC is just your survival modifier plus 10. And that only applies if your survival DC is higher than what the DC would have been based on the terrain alone. It doesn't lower the DC for the people tracking you, it can only increase it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Next is track, which is a one action ability that is trained, and you move half your speed and you're going to attempt to follow and track someone or something else. On a success, you find the trail and you find what direction the creature or person that you're trying to go after. Now, this does happen every hour.
Unless something happens that makes the GM have you do it more often.
For example, if they go across the river,
Yeah.
right? And there isn't immediately water footprints on the other side, they're like, all right, well, you got to make another one, which would change the DC for that environment as well.
Yeah, totally. Or like maybe maybe it starts raining or it starts snowing, something like that. There's so many things that can interrupt this. On a failure, you lose the trail, but you can make another check after an hour. Now, I think adding an hour of time is going to make the DC higher most of the time because the tracks are going to get, you know, disturbed by wind or other animals or whatever. And also, if you keep moving while the track is lost, I think it's going to be worse. Because if you left the trail, like you're probably with the best of rolls not going to be able to find it because it's literally not there anymore.
Well, and I mean, I don't even think it's that. I think the fact is if they're attempting to cover their tracks and you're attempting to trail them, right? And you fail your check, right? They've now still gotten to move for an hour. And so at best, you're always going to be that much further unless they also fail their check.
Yeah.
And that's the only real like point because even
if they fail their check,
they just continue to move.
Yeah.
And it's just the DC or like the DC of trailing.
I think at a certain point you have to assess as a character how their heading is taking them. Like where are they going? You have to understand like the world map in order for this to be very useful. Or the move speed of your party has to inherently be higher than the people that you're tracking, which makes sense, right? Like if you can tell, oh, they're going to this town, you can just take a more direct path to that town and meet them.
Sure.
Or if you're faster than them, you're gonna catch them eventually, unless you fail a bunch.
Well, I don't even think you have to fail a bunch. Like, failing once hard enough could theoretically put you in a really bad position. Like, on both cases. Failing to cover your tracks and thinking you've covered your tracks and still going, and you've now minused your speed in half. Now, if they come across it and the DM's like, oh yeah, you can clearly see that they're walking towards this town, you don't need to spend an hour doing that. You could just be like, oh cool, I'm going to the town.
I think I'm going to disagree, honestly, with one of the cover tracks things, which is that you can't lower the DC, that it just sets to the DC of the terrain. But what if you're like a fucking caravan? Like what if you're like making deep wheel grooves in the ground and you have like tons and tons of people? Like I'm going to just be like, is your passive perception higher than this number? Cool, great. You can see the tracks.
I think there is certain environments that don't allow for tracks, and I think that's where it comes in. Like, for example, if you're going across a rocky terrain, right? That's large slabs of rock.
Yeah,
there's no trails.
I'm not saying there's a universal answer. I'm saying there are exceptions to this that exist.
Oh yeah, and I think that's where the GM comes into play of basing the environment off of how they feel is best for storytell-wise, as well as what makes the funnest part of the game.
That's the whole book. We literally could have just made all our videos, make the game fun for your players. Bye.
Here's a set of loosely based rules that you can or can't, or like you do not have to follow.
Ignore them if they're boring.
Exactly. I do that a lot. Me too. All right, that's it for Wisdom. Head down to the comments and let us know what part of Wisdom that you didn't know about and are glad that you know. And while you're down there, make sure to hit the like button to just make the number go up one. Hit the subscribe button so that you can be subscribed to our channel and you can get absolutely nothing from that as well. All of that leads you to the bell icon, which helps us out a ton. It actually sends you notifications for when our content comes out. And when you're done doing all of that, why don't you come over and have a conversation with us? You can have a conversation with me on Twitter at IndigoQT.
You can get me at CrewQT on Twitter. You can also talk to both of us at all of this social media right here. It's so pretty. And until next time, we've been GameGorgon. Bye.